Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast today on the 8th of March. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast. This is the 8th of March. I'm Charlie Tolhurst. And yes, the 8th of March, the date that a lot of people were waiting for. The easing of England's lockdown starts today. All education back, and also as well, you can meet outside with one other person from another household to do recreational outdoors and to a care home. With one nominated visitor can go there and has to have a test for COVID and wear PPE. I'm joined by Labour supporter Zach Chambers to round up today's news. Hello, Zach.
Hello.
And Zach, big week for the government for this one, isn't it? Obviously, the reopening of schools today, also the new slightly relaxed rules on outdoor mixing as well being allowed. Obviously, only two people still. Slight cautious easing by the Prime Minister. But I received a tweet earlier about these lateral flow tests in schools, and apparently there's been some changes to the guidance around if someone tests positive using a lateral flow test and on a PCR test they test negative, they don't have to self-isolate. Could you explain to listeners exactly what is going on with a lateral flow testing advice?
Yeah, that's right. I know Vicky Ford, the MP for Chumpford, was on the morning broadcast round for the broadcasters today, and said earlier that if you had a positive test but a positive lateral flow but a negative PCR, you still need to self-isolate. She's been corrected. You don't need to self-isolate if you do get a positive lateral flow test but a negative PCR test. We know that for certain because why is that for you wondering? Well, it's because the PCR tests are known to be a little bit more reliable than the lateral flow tests. They give an indication, but they're not always totally accurate. And that's one of the episodes that we've just seen. So the guidance is that if you have a positive positive lateral flow test but a negative PCR, then you don't need to self-isolate for a certain amount of days. That's the rule. So Vicky Ford going around confusing the nation on the rules earlier, then having to be corrected by number 10 in the briefing, the midday briefing today to journalists. So yeah, she got it slightly wrong. It just begs the question a little bit, and if she can't get it right, who can get it right, to be fair?
But it's really crazy, Zach. How does this guidance even work? It is so confusing. Like we've had so much mixed messages from the government during the pandemic, and this one is another one of their woes, isn't it?
Yeah, that was I think the education minister should have known better on that one. Obviously, I think in some ways it's an easy thing to mix, like I nearly just did there. But I think probably should have looked at the notes earlier and said, and from what she would have given, and said that you shouldn't need to self-isolate if you have a negative PCR test. It's not exactly brilliant. The number 10 are having to go around correcting her, but that's where we are, unfortunately. She made the mistake. She's got corrected. Confusion all round. But the latest is that negative PCR test does not necessarily mean self-isolation.
No. I think as well, we've got to be careful with these tests as well. With the lateral flows, again, I know a lot of places are using them, businesses across England. They're not the most accurate, I'll be honest with you. But at least they turn results back in half an hour, which is the positive thing with them. I've actually got the data from UK today on coronavirus. I'm just going to go over that now quickly. 4,712 new cases confirmed in the last 24 hours, down 26% the week before. The number of patients admitted to hospital down to 688 in the last 24 hours. Sadly, deaths, though, within 28 days of positive test, I've very sadly to report that during this pandemic, 124,566 further deaths have been registered in the UK. That's 124,566 fatalities within 28 days of positive test, an increase of 65 deaths. My thoughts are with all those who've lost loved ones. However, Zach, the death toll is actually lower than what it was a few weeks ago. That's actually encouraging news, isn't it?
Which is quite something, you have to say. Obviously, there's a little bit of a weekend effect, less administration working during the weekend, which means it's not entirely, it will probably go up a little bit today. But that's the thing, though, Charlie. The deaths are so low now that, that's where we are. We've had to lift part restrictions today, and that everyone's gone back today on their education, or going back this week, if we say that as well. But yes, it's all going in the right direction, Charlie. Now, I have to say, one public health in England, Susan Hopkins, who was on Andrew Marr yesterday, said that schools could put the R number above 1, but they're not going to address it via 1 now. They're going to address how the case numbers are doing. So yeah, it's not actually, to be fair, going to be too much of an issue. And I remember one sage advisor saying last week as well, Charlie, even with potential variants as well, it should not affect too much the liftings of restrictions, which is good news to hear, as well. So we're doing quite well. As we speak, Boris Johnson is doing a news conference where he's going to be asked about COVID. The other thing as well, which has been in the news, which I don't really want, which I know is being mentioned a lot and screaming across the airways today. And I should also point out, Charlie, just so a famous journalist is back in her role today, as Sky News political editor. The once famous Bev Rigby is being reinstated into her role today as well. And I believe she's asking a question at the number 10 press conference today, which you'll be very intrigued to hear about. There will be a bit of irony, bit of a explosion on the socials, but hey-ho, she's back. And she's probably back with vengeance.
Bev Rigby is back presenting on Sky News. Well, actually, should I say reporting on Sky News? He's going to be answering the question. Boris Johnson is actually on now in the number 10 Downing Street, holding a briefing. I actually saw Dr. Jenny Harris, who was also in that meeting as well, or a briefing discussing about reopening schools and also a few other things as well. But the UK in a much better position compared to what it was, say in January, for example, when we were having over 1,000 deaths a day. It was horrendous. The vaccination's now really starting to pick up. I did actually have some vaccine data as well, but I'm just going to go over now, actually. The vaccine data is now in these briefings. And I just have the updated figures here. It says 22.3 million have received their first dose. That could be updated very soon in the future. So that is most of the UK news. Zach, moving on to Brazil now. Oh my God, Jair Bolsonaro saying the other day, basically to Brazilians, as the country's recorded over another day of over 1,500 deaths. What is going on? He had a message to the Brazilian public. Just stop worrying about it, is what he meant. And he also believes in a nasal spray rather than a vaccine to treat COVID-19. What do you make of that?
No, do not take medical advice from Jair Bolsonaro. Let's just say that. From the bloke that gave you that promoted hydroxychloroquine. So, yeah. I wouldn't take nasal spray. No, of course not. I already took a vaccine. Take the vaccine, obviously. But that's obviously, of course, as the Brazilian variant is spread across Brazil. I read the other day it was 70,000 cases, 1,500 deaths, as you said, Charlie. The virus is spreading rapidly across Brazil. Some cases now made its way into the UK, where 6 of them have been confirmed. One person went completely missing, has now been found based on the located data form, thankfully. Surge testing in certain areas, I think, that's been done. We haven't had any more new cases about that. I understand also, Charlie, there's been some news from the CDC regarding vaccinated people, and I hope we can get onto that in a couple of minutes, actually.
Yeah, we will get onto that, yeah. He said, stop whining.
Yeah, he said, stop whining.
COVID-19.
Well, I wish he'd tell the people who died from that to stop whining, because there's obviously plenty of reason to whine about. And I whine gracefully and sorrowfully, rather unfortunately, that they are dying from COVID. So there's plenty to whine about there. Obviously, he's all right. He may be healthy. He may be fine. But he's not learned his lessons, has he? And he's also facing, I think he's facing re-election sometime this year or next year.
Yeah, Mr. Bolsonaro's not looking great, but it gets worse because the Sao Paulo governor, Jair Doria, has actually hit back at him over his comments about stop whining about the pandemic. And I think actually one of the Brazilian cities went into lockdown, completely going against the president's advice.
Well, to be fair, Charlie, they're doing it the proper way. How to deal with the pandemic is actually to listen to health and to take action when needed. So bravo to the Sao Paulo mayor for not listening to the Brazilian president. He's whining for good reason, let's just say, the Sao Paulo mayor, and whining for good action. So yeah, I do not think we should be taking medical advice from Jair Bolsonaro. Let's just say that.
I know. Well, the variant from Manaus is now in this country, and there's 6 cases. Thankfully, one of them's been traced down. Apparently, one of the 6th person, the mystery person, is now been traced down, and I believe it was in the southeast of England. It was in Corby where that case was, according to last week. So, the Brazilian variant is now in this country. Concerns about vaccines, but we should not worry. I honestly think they will be effective against this strain, especially a vaccine that I'm going to be coming on to now, Zach, which is a vaccine CDC, I believe, have approved, or the FDA have approved this, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And this one looks very interesting. 85% effective against severe disease. But what I read up the other day, that's really encouraging, isn't it, in the fight against the pandemic?
And you need only a single shot as well, Charlie, on that one. So that's great. You only need a single shot for Johnson & Johnson. There's 4 million being administered last week, I believe. There's going to be 30 million of that in total, I believe, in America. I know we've ordered some as well. But coming back to the CDC news, Charlie, because this is just broke as well whilst we have been talking. The CDC in America has released new guidance on people who are vaccinated in America. This is in America. Obviously, this doesn't apply to us. But this is in America. And they have now advised for vaccinated people that they can meet indoors without needing masks. That is significant, Charlie. That is very significant news that's just been released. Those who are vaccinated can meet people indoors without masks and without social distancing. That is a significant development. So I think clearly what the CDC are suggesting here is that the vaccines are so effective there at preventing transmission that it's okay to actually meet people indoors. So that's suggesting that they got the vaccines are working there, Charlie. Preventing the transition. The CDC though has said though that people they should still cover their faces in public when going out and about. That's the news that's just come in.
Wow.
So they've said that vaccinated people can get together in the same way with people considered low risk. So that will be vaccinated grandparents visiting healthy children and grandchildren. So basically, you could have youngsters over, basically, because you were not really that harmful. So that is a significant development, Charlie, in America that's just been announced and released. As I speak, Charlie, that's just been announced via the CDC in America. In America, that you can visit people and visit indoors with healthy people without needing to social distance, without needing to mask up. So that's a significant development. These are people who have been vaccinated, though. Those people who haven't been vaccinated should still social distance, obviously, and should still take the necessary precautions.
Yeah.
But those who have took the vaccine can actually meet indoors without the need for masks.
Is that both
or social
doses? Just to
distancing.
clarify what the CDC is saying. Is that both doses,
Let me
or is
check.
that the one
Let me
dose?
check what the CDC. It says fully vaccinated. So fully vaccinated means
2.
I suspect that'll be 2. Now that's only a small population at the moment, Charlie, but that's a significant development. That's still a lot of people, Charlie, that can go indoors and meet without needing to do social distancing in the mask. Now there could be some confusion because you could see a party next door and people could dock people in, but I think it will depend state by state rules and how this will work. But that is significant because that means there will be a big more. That could mean a lot more people can start going around, meeting each other without needing to social distance indoors. But that's a significant development. Actually, they say avoid large gatherings. They can meet people indoors, but avoid any large gatherings. As well. Actually, that's from the CDC, so I should clarify
avoid mixing in groups of probably over, say, 80 people or groups of over 50. I think that's I'm not sure the exact number, but it's large.
I think what's suggesting is 5 or 10 is okay without masks and social distancing when you're fully vaccinated, when you took your 2 doses. I think they're saying that's absolutely fine. It's just massive gatherings such as, the 50s, the 20s, the big party gathering, Charlies. That's not recommended. But they're also saying as well, recommended that, you should wear masks outdoors if and when necessary. Maintain social distancing in the public, but indoors with family or something like that, they're okay.
Yeah. It's very important. I mean, I'd take that advice as well. Obviously, if you're fully vaccinated, if you have the Johnson & Johnson one, that is 1 dose. Just to confirm, this Johnson & Johnson vaccine is 1 dose. So if you had that 1 dose of that vaccine, you can follow that advice. But I'd be very careful when it comes to following that advice. Be very careful. I know, Zach, as well, that some governors, like Greg Abbott in Texas, and another governor, I think in West Virginia or something, are actually planning on removing their mask mandates. I know in Texas, they've actually removed their mask mandate as I speak right now. It's crazy. What do you make of that decision by the Republican governor, Greg Abbott of Texas?
Yeah, so 2 governors, Mississippi governor and the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, are announced they're going to remove their mask mandates and opening businesses at 100% capacity. Now, this has been criticised, by the way, by the likes of Dr. Fauci, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who's the director of the CDC, have all come out and slightly criticised this move. And even the president, Joe Biden, has come out. I think he said something like neoliberal thinking, which is quite a harsh criticism. I mean, quite a fairly brutal criticism on those governors. I think the trouble is the cases have plateaued, Charlie, where they're not going down, but they're plateauing. And the CDC basically saying, like just Dr. Rochelle Walensky, are basically saying, well, based on this plateau, and the case rate's going to go up again in a couple of weeks. So they think it's all too early, and they need to take it more cautiously. That's what the CDC, that's what Dr. Rochelle Walensky, Dr. Fauci, the Joe Biden are all saying. So, yeah, there is a bit of risk at this, Charlie. There's a lot of risk. And I have to say, it's a bit, it's very risky. I'm not even sure if I would even do this as well, Charlie, if I was a governor over there. I think it's a bit risky. But the West Virginia government are still recommending masks. Alabama are going to remove their mask mandate before April time. So, yeah, there is some lifting restrictions there as the cases start to come down.
Yeah, there's going to be some easing of the coronavirus COVID-19 restrictions in the states. All the governors, by the way, are in charge of that. So they can remove restrictions based on their, obviously, all their orders. Obviously, because they run their own states, they have all the powers to impose and also remove restrictions on freedom. So it's going to be very interesting to see what we're going to see next week. I'm sure that the Republican governors, like from like Fox News and that, especially the newscasts like Tucker Carlson, will be watching this very carefully.
Oh, they'll be loving it. They'll be Tucker Carlson will
very
love
much
it.
all. I don't know what I mean. I have to say, Zach, as well. Trump last year actually praised Greg Abbott for lifting his restrictions in Texas.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, of course. Obviously, Trump's not the greatest fans of masks, as you know. But you know, of course, he'll be cheering them on. But you know, Joe Biden's more the careful one. Don't want to, you know, they want to keep going a bit more safely compared to Greg Abbott and the likes of that.
It's going to be interesting to see how the different stances of all the political parties in America take shape. So it's going to be very interesting. But comment down below. Do you think that Greg Abbott, the Texas governor, is removing his mask mandate too quickly? Let me know down in the comments below. Comments are always open here live for all the latest comments. If you want to comment on any of these, please just drop a little question below and we'll be happy to answer it as well. I am live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube if you want to listen to the Globetrotter Newscast. We're going to carry on now. That's it from COVID-19. Moving on now to something not associated with coronavirus, Scottish politics. Now, this news story broke out a couple of weeks ago, but last week there was some hearings in court. Nicola Sturgeon was questioned last week in court. Now, Alex Salmond, who used to be the First Minister of Scotland, accused Nicola Sturgeon of misleading Scottish Parliament over sexual harassment claims. Now, Zach, what did you make of Miss Sturgeon's hearing on Miss Sturgeon's hearing on this? Do you think she misled Parliament?
Wow, it's interesting, Charlie. I've been really fascinated in this because this has been a very close relationship that has soured over so much over whether the Scottish government handled allegations of Alex Salmond sexually harassing people fairly, and there's this committee that's just set up a while ago that examining all this evidence and whether the Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament and therefore broke the ministerial code. Now, Alex Salmond had his turn last week, or actually the week before in the chair, I should say, where he answered questions and laid out his case. There's been an awful lot of ping-ponging around and absolute carnage because the Crown Office censored some evidence from Alex Salmond just before he appeared, and therefore delayed his appearance. Now, he did end up turning on the Friday, not last week, but the week before that. And then we had Nicola Sturgeon turn up on the Wednesday
the week before.
last week to discuss her version of the events, whether she broke the ministerial code. This is looking very spicy, Charlie, because this could be the downfall of Nicola Sturgeon if she is found out to misled Parliament and therefore broke the ministerial code. Because Alex Salmond has said that there should be resignations going along. If she has done, he wouldn't say who. Nicola Sturgeon came out fighting the other week, last week, saying that no, this is all a bit of conspiracy, this is all messed up, and it's actually Alex Salmond's fault and all that sort of thing. I have to say, Charlie, this is affecting Scottish politics a little bit as well. We have to say, because of the way this is working. Independent supports is now starting to fall. Some people polled from the weekend say that they don't really trust Nicola Sturgeon's events, really, of events. Now, if Nicola Sturgeon has broken the ministerial code, then this may well be a resigning matter for her, because basically she would have misled, she would have hid evidence. This is going to break up the independence movement if this does, force her to resign. Who else, like Nicola Sturgeon, who else would really take her place? There's not really much else. There's no confidence vote in her, even that the Scottish Tories launched. They even launched a no confidence vote in John Sweeney last week, the Scottish Tory, for failing to publish legal advice, which the Parliament had requested. It's all over the place, Charlie. It is absolutely gone bonkers in Scotland in terms of whether Nicola Sturgeon did mislead Parliament. it is going to be very wild and rocky few weeks, I have to say. And this all comes just before we're 2 months away, Charlie, from a Scottish Parliament campaign, and Nicola Sturgeon is trying to win the public over and trying to get a majority so that she can get independence vote on the table. So yeah, this is not looking good for her, especially into the run-up towards the 2021 elections in Scotland. This is not a good look for her. No doubt about it. And it raises lots of questions, this scandal.
This could put the SNP well off course to win the Holyrood elections in May. This could be a big turning point for Scottish politics. And I mean, Zach, Ruth Davidson spoke the other day on Channel 4 and she wasn't very happy with what was being said about the evidence that Alex Salmond released last week. That this could potentially put Sturgeon's future in charge of Scotland in real doubt, and potentially this could mean Stat, do you reckon this could be if Sturgeon is found to have misled Parliament, do you think this is the beginning of the end for the SNP's premiership in Scotland?
I think it will have a significant effect. The thing is, Charlie, Scotland, independent, the SNP is still popular in Scotland as well. Now, I don't whether that will have enough, whether if Nicola Sturgeon is found to mislead Parliament, whether that would have a real effect on people voting SNP. It may well do. It may well not gain the full majority that they wanted as well. And, they could have to prop up Green support again. We don't know. Maybe it could benefit Conservatives better, the Labour better. We don't know. But the thing is, Charlie, is that it could have an effect. I don't think it will have enough effect for the SNP not to win, but not have the majority. I think it could have the effect so that they don't have the majority and that the independence movement could all be unravelling. And the Tories are watching, the Scottish Tories are watching this, and even the UK, I expect the UK Tories are watching this gleefully and rubbing their hands, watching all this happen, because this is chawing a divide in SNP ranks between those who support Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond. And it's going to have implications, I think, Charlie. It's going to have implications, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to launch their campaign soon. I know the local elections are going ahead this year in England in a COVID-secure way. We know that the Scottish Labour Party now have a new member on board as well. I forgot his name, actually, but there is Ansar. He's the new leader. Yeah. He's the new leader of the Scottish Labour Party. So they're going to have someone new in. But yeah, the SNP are certainly going to have to pull themselves together if they want to win the election. And certainly Nicola Sturgeon's going to have a tough couple of months ahead of her in the bid to still retain that seat as First Minister, which she's held for quite a while now, actually, I believe. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that news as we speak. But we're going to move on now to motorsport. And Zach, just under 3 weeks to go till the Formula One season starts. Lots to talk about. Pre-season testing starting this weekend. Lots of car launches last week. What did you make of the Aston Martin and Mercedes and the Williams that launched the other week?
Well, I think, Charlie, we're getting a nice variety of livery changes this season as well, Charlie. So let's look at the Aston Martin F1 car for this year. And it's very good. I mean, he got a glossy green paint with a little bit of pink on it and down the side. But yeah, I think it looks really good. And it's true Aston Martin, really, Charlie. It looks brilliant. It's a very old school Aston. This is the first time that the Aston Martin is a customer team again for the first time since 1930s, I think this is, or 50s, something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, and there's also with new driver Sebastian Vettel alongside Lance Stroll. So yeah, I think the car looks really good, Charlie. In terms of the Haas, I mean, I like it, but there's clearly a little bit of bias on it because it's got a Russian flag on it. If you look at the livery, Charlie, it's white. There's like a Russian flag going across the back.
Yeah.
So obviously bringing Nikita Mazepin sponsors clearly. Now I should point out Nikita Mazepin will be racing under a neutral flag because the Russian flag is actually banned from sport at the moment, Charlie. So Nikita Mazepin is running with a neutral flag, but clearly they worked around it on the livery. Let's just say that. I like it, I have to say. The one I thought was surprising was the Williams livery. I was not expecting that to look like white and then the blue in the background. You see, I'm not sure about it, Charlie. I'm not really sure about it. I think it looks a bit. I think if it had a bit more sponsor on it, I think it would look quite nice. I'm not really sure on it. If you ask me, it's
an interesting one, the Williams one, isn't it?
I can't. Yeah, I can't get used to it. I just can't. But if we also look at the Alpine one as well,
Alpine's one looked quite good actually. The blue, and
that's a very
bluish,
stylish livery. Yeah, very good. That's beautiful. By the way, I really like it. It's excellent. That's a good looking livery. Now I should point out as well on the Williams one, Charlie. Unfortunately, they were going to launch it via the VR app, but unfortunately, someone hacked it. So we just had images instead, which is a bit very sad to see because we could have seen it via an actual virtual reality app. But some idiot thought it was a good idea to hack it. But yeah. But I'm not, as I said, I'm not too keen on the Williams one. But yeah, it's a shame that he couldn't do it properly.
Williams one looks quite good. George Russell and Nicholas Latifi at that team. I just wanted to count the Haas. That is Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, F2 champion from last year at the team. Mercedes launched their one last week as well. W12 looks really good actually. That one. It's a bit of a similar to last year, I suppose. But the Mercedes livery, the black, still looks great. Great actually around the London lights in Singapore. So that is all on the F1. Pre-season testing will be available this weekend in Bahrain as well.
And live on
NASCAR
Sky.
now.
Yeah,
and live on Sky Sports as well. Sky Sports F1 this weekend, pre-season testing. But Zach, NASCAR now, and big weekend. Las Vegas Motor Speedway hosted the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube. I finally said it correct now. The Pennzoil 400 sponsored by Jiffy Lube.
Jiffy Lube.
And another new winner. Wow, 4 races in 4 different winners. Wow, Carl Larson taking it home in the end.
Yeah, that's Carl Larson. This is his first victory since he got suspended last season, I believe. So this is his first win as well, and it's a huge win for him. He beat Brad Keselowski. As you know, he was wondering why he was fired. He was fired for using a racial slur last season during an iRacing event. But he was hired by Hendrick later this year to bring him back in as well. But he managed to win the race. And I bet he's got a boosted reputation, this Charlie. He's going to have a boosted reputation about it. He had a lucky escape actually because he nearly missed pit road during the last round of green flag pit stops as well. And there's a very not much cautions during the race as well. So it was mainly the front rows out there. Hamlin was lead. Denny Hamlin was leading most of the race. Charlie, unfortunately, finished 4th. Kyle Busch finished 3rd.
Ryan Blaney 5th. Very close between Blaney and Hamlin at the end of the race, separated by very little distance.
Yeah,
we just got
Eric Almirola was the one that caused caution earlier on as well.
He actually was he the one? He actually very lucky to get into pit road. Actually, I saw he nearly collected another driver. It was very lucky for him not to collect someone else.
Oh yes, Charlie, he was so lucky because that could have been, I think, a lot worse for him if he did end up crashing on pit road, but obviously he did not, thankfully.
Chase Elliott
Yeah.
didn't have a great weekend either. He spun off midway through the race as well. He got in some dirty air apparently.
Chase Elliott, not exactly bring back the thrills from his win a few weeks ago, but yeah, so not as good race for him. He's still in the chase, obviously. He's going to be in the playoffs because he's locked in a win. Obviously, Carlos is now locked into the playoffs now with this victory. So yeah, that's important for him because he now needs to finish in the top 30 in the points to maintain that playoff position. But he has guaranteed himself a playoff position as long as he finishes the top 30 with that victory.
Yeah, we go. So next up for the NASCAR series, we go to Phoenix. Yeah. That will be on Phoenix Raceway. That is on the 14th of March. Then we go to the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway on the 21st. And at the end of this month, we've got the Bristol Motor Speedway for the Food City Dirt Race. First time since 1970 NASCAR are racing on dirt racing. And that's at Bristol. Zach, what do you make of NASCAR bringing back the dirt racing? What do you think? Do you think this will provide some exciting action?
Yeah, I love dirt racing, Charlie. I think it would be great to bring dirt racing as well. I mean, NASCAR's actually been dirt racing for the last few years. I think there's been a truck series race at Eldora where they've done a dirt race each year. But bring it to Bristol for the weekend is huge, Charlie. And it's going to be in a different race format as well because there's going to be heats as well, qualifiers. So it's going to make it for exciting, Charlie, I think. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Then we go to Martinsville on the 11th of April for the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500, which is going to be interesting as well. And Zach, what do you make of obviously Bristol Speedway being on the NASCAR calendar? It's an interesting track, isn't it? Like there's a couple of short track NASCAR events that do really offer some great racing. What do you make if more motorsport events race there?
Great. Short track racing's great. I mean, you only obviously Bristol will be longer now because it's normally 15 seconds a lap. Now it won't be because you're obviously going to race on dirt and dirt slows you down a lot. You'll be drifting a lot. Let's just say that, Charlie. There's going to be a lot of drifting and lots of sliding on the dirts. But Bristol's one of the fastest tracks on the calendar in terms of racing because it's basically normally it's a 500 lap race normally. This time it's only 250 because of the speed people are going to be driving at. But it's going to be so fun, Charlie. Racing on dirt, watching drivers racing on dirt. It's incredible.
It's going to be great. I can't wait for the Food City Dirt Race. I've heard so much about NASCAR on dirt. It's going to be amazing. And I think as well, Martinsville is going to be a great track as well. And Zach, what do you make of Martinsville? Only a short lap, but it offers plenty of action, doesn't it?
Yeah, Martinsville is a short track, but it's slow as well. So you have to turn quite hard into braking points as well, and you can stack the field up quite significantly. You know, there's no room for error in short tracks like Martinsville because you can stack it up in corners. But it directs some exciting racing. You can bang wheels basically quite safely without going to massive speeds, and it's a very exciting racetrack, Charlie.
It is, yeah. So next weekend we go to Phoenix for a NASCAR at Phoenix Race, and that will be on Fox Sports for your NASCAR action. Now we're going to finish off this podcast, Zach, or finishing off the Globetrotter Newscast. We're talking about the biggest news of the week, and that is some news that I think a lot of people might be finding quite interesting. Nigel Farage has stepped down from politics after over 30 years. What do you make of this, Zach?
Well, I think he's actually announced his actual retirement this time. I can't tell half the time whether he's actually stepping down from politics or not because he's always so active and so interesting. Whether I agree with it or not, some people this will be a relief, Charlie. You know, for a lot of people this will be a relief, Charlie. No doubt about that. For some people, they will be very much missed. You know, I know me, Charlie. You know, probably my views on him, and you know that, and I'm not sure. You know, it's just. I think the thing is, Charlie, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, he's had a lot of influence He most famously, the most famous one of all, Charlie, is obviously the fact that he got the referendum. He won the referendum on the European Union argument, and he's been the most influential non-member of the British Parliament ever. He's not even held his seat there. He's sat for election 7 times there, not won his seat at all, and yet he's been so influential as well on people. Charlie, he obviously managed to start UKIP up, which turned out to be which at the end of the day was trying to support getting out of the European Union. And it turned out to be, when he left it turned out to be a cesspit of actual right-wing nonsense, Charlie. I mean, you took everything to a new level once you've got the likes of Paul Nuttall, that Gerald bloke, that was in charge, who was friends with Tommy Robinson. But to be fair, Charlie, his passion has been immigration. Yeah, okay. You can imagine all the conversations that started out that since he's whipped it up. But he's had a big influence, Charlie. No, don't whether you agree or disagree with him, he's had a huge influence on British politics. For the better, for the worse, you can judge him for that. I judge it the other way. But he has a huge influence. He's going to still be influential, no doubt, Charlie. He's just resigned as a political leader. I know Richard Tice has took over his role as reform leader. Richard Tice was obviously famously the chairman of the Brexit Party, then for Reform for a bit. Now he took the leadership role. But yeah, I think he gauges where populism as much as he can, and whether he's been on the right argument or not. So he's had a huge influence. He will still be influential. He's still going to keep the conversation going about certain subjects, such as China, which I actually, China's a big deal. Actually, I kind of agree with him on that. But and he was also going to focus a lot about immigration, something which, I think stirs up a lot of hatred. But it's important to talk about it. But sometimes it just ends up in a load of hatred at the end of the day. But yes, he's been very influential. He's had some interesting quotes. I know one of them's become a meme. It was after, I think, in the European Parliament when they met.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
the Brexit vote, and he most famously said, "Well, you're not laughing now, are you?" And that became a meme. To be fair, I don't mind using that as a meme. Let's just say that I think it's
You patronising stuck-up snob was another one as well. Actually, he said that straight at Juncker.
That was something which probably I wouldn't use, and I'll be careful about.
Yeah,
but it was a very famous quote.
Another one of Farage's famous quotes in the European Parliament.
Now are you? Was one of the most famous ones I remember, and that was after the Brexit, after the first time the European Union Parliament met after the vote to leave, and that just became a meme, Charlie.
It did. I'm now,
but happy
right now I'm actually happy retirement to Nigel. Whilst I'm here, I'm actually going to play for you, as Nigel Farage is leaving politics. I'm actually going to play for you an interview of what happened when Nigel Farage gets heated over a debate of whether controversial statues should be removed on Good Morning Britain. Have a listen to this.
Oh yes.
Including the attempt to set fire to the Union flag on the cenotaph, the desecration of Churchill's statue on the 76th anniversary of D-Day, and mob hysteria in Bristol. I'm very happy to sit and talk to you about it.
Should statues of Adolf Hitler have been allowed to stay up in Germany, in Berlin, for example?
And do you know why they're not there?
Tell me.
Because the German Parliament democratically were voted in on manifestos that said they would remove the symbolism of their recent Nazi past.
Did you agree with that?
And here, yes, I believe in democracy, not violent, anarchic, mob rule.
Okay, so look, we're getting somewhere now. So you agree that the statues of Adolf Hitler should not be in Germany? You agree?
I believe in democracy, Piers. Do you?
Yes,
Why
absolutely.
don't you give a straight answer?
I'm just asking you whether you believe a statue of Adolf Hitler should be in Germany. And unless I'm wrong, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Nigel, but unless I'm wrong, you've just said statues of Adolf Hitler should not be in Germany. Am I right? Is that what you said?
I said a democratic decision was taken by people who were elected to say they wouldn't
But you
get
said
rid
you
of it.
agreed with it. That's my point. You agree with it.
I disagree with violent mob.
That's not my question, Nigel. I'm only asking, do you agree with the democratic decision in Germany to remove statues of Adolf Hitler? Yes or no? I think you said yes.
I agree with all democratic decisions.
So, sorry, I don't want to be pedantic, but it is important.
You'll be very pedantic.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get to what you actually believe. It seems to me that you personally agreed. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me what you said was you agreed with the German democratic decision to remove Adolf Hitler statues. Yes?
I think it was the right thing for Germany to do.
Okay, so if it's right for Germany to remove statues of Adolf Hitler who oppressed their people, why is it wrong for the people of Bristol to say they don't want to have Edward Colston's statue to stay up, given that he was a slave owner and a slave trader responsible for the deaths of 20,000 people?
Because they did it as a violent mob, making their own decisions on what they thought was right and wrong. If the people of Bristol, and bear in mind that Edward Colston made a lot of money out of the Royal African Company, a lot of money, all right? He then was a big philanthropist, and in many public buildings all over Bristol named after Edward Colston. The history of Bristol.
Dr. Sherlock, I just want to ask you, put that point to you, the point that Nigel...
Perfect. 84,000 people, 19,000 of them died, 12,000 were children.
Yes, and of politics. He was like the Eurosceptic of his day, taking on the establishment.
He was a slave owner and slave trader, Nigel. He traded in slavery, black people.
Let us remember that Edward Colston was just part of the Royal African Company. It was founded.
It was a huge part.
What's he saying the Schutzstaffen were only part of the Nazis? What are you talking about?
It was backed by Samuel Pepys. Now, if you want to stop teaching his diaries in British schools, you can do so. The point here is
extremist group, which is not what happened. And the only reason he did that, and which is also the reason why he can't give you a straight answer on Adolf Hitler, is because he chose to do it to incite hate amongst racists and white supremacists. There is no justification for statues that immortalize slavery, immortalize British imperialism to remain standing. Do you know why? It has no historical benefit. And I'll tell you why as well. It embodies the racism that black people experience today.
All right,
So
Nigel Farage, just to clarify, why did you compare Black Lives Matter protesters to the Taliban?
You know, the BBC have consistently over the last week refused to tell people the truth about Black Lives Matter. The slogan, Black Lives Matter, and the wanting to end injustice and inequality is a laudable aim. The organisation, Black Lives Matter, is a far-left Marxist organisation whose chief aim is to defund and close down police forces so that we would live under...
Oh, you're full of such utter nonsense, Nigel Farage. I understand that you're struggling to be relevant, but let me tell you something. The only thing you're an expert on, Nigel Farage, the only thing you're an expert on right now is your backside, because every word out of your mouth stinks. That is an utter lie. The Black Lives Matter, it represents the fight against racism in this country and wherever it is that exists. So everything you're saying is utter rubbish.
It's utter rubbish. And how can you be seriously on this show saying that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organisation about defunding the police? Nigel, this is just outrageous what you are saying. Black people suffer so much in this country, the institutionalised racism. They are dying from COVID. People encourage immigration hatred. You have done the same yourself. And now you are encouraging people to compare Black Lives Matter to the Taliban when they are asking for justice and for equality in this country. And I am very disturbed by this talk of pulling down statues means the end of history. Whose history do we mean? In 1895, when Colston was put up, they could have put up an abolitionist, they could have put up Equiano, Alado Equiano, fought for abolition. They didn't. They put up a slave trader. So tried to bring it down so many times, it wasn't working, and so they brought it down. And people
to blow up and destroy historical monuments from a different time
Who's
that they
blowing
don't.
anything up, Nigel?
What we saw on the weekend was the most appalling example of mob rule. I'll make the point one more time.
Nigel Farage, you cannot say it's the most appalling example of mob rule when you are comparing them to people who literally blow things up and are responsible for the worst atrocities. I mean, that's a deliberate comparison.
That's because Nigel is a racist. What else do you expect?
Let him answer.
Right, I tell you what, let's ask our historian friend. Outside the House of Commons, there's a statue of Oliver Cromwell. There are many Irish people who would say that in Wexford and Drogheda, he committed what they think to be massacres. Should we then get rid of the statue of Oliver Cromwell?
I have seen this. I think we have to have a wide discussion about all these statues, about people who are problematic. It includes Churchill, it includes Cromwell. There are many people that are problematic. But let's face it, no one got upset when we pulled down that statue of Jimmy Savile. Everyone thought, why was he even up there? And Colston should have come down long ago. The destruction of Colston is not the destruction of history.
And that, thank you there for listen to that video of a heated debate on Good Morning Britain between Nigel Farage and Piers Morgan. So, what did you make of that debate on statues?
Yeah, do you know what the thing is, Charlie, the fact that you just played me that video, right? Okay, so that's interesting. First of all, how long Nigel? Let's just say this is about Farage overall, okay? Because Farage is the main controversy man, right? Okay, I think he comes on just to cause controversy every time, no matter what, and I think there's complete agreement about that. But the thing is about Charlie, I was listening to the early parts when you were playing that video to me, Charlie. I was, the thing that shocked me first of all was one, how in that video where he was discussing that he was taking so long to condemn whether he was taking so long. Sorry, it taking so long. To answer whether, a statue of, say, Adolf Hitler should have been stayed in Germany, for example. And I was thinking, well, just answer the question. I mean, he did agree with it eventually, but it just took so long. Now, people will obviously interpret that in certain ways, and, but it was incredible how long it took the answer. I know he's saying he'd done in democracy. Yeah, fair enough. I agree with him on that. But then, obviously, they got the argument about Black Lives Matter, and then they were all comparing it to the Taliban, which is, I just think it's so overly exaggerated. And I just think it causes, I think that's a silly comparison, in my opinion. But I just thought the whole conversation was so funny when everyone started accusing each other of being a racist and everything. And I just thought, okay, this is just the funniest conversation ever there. And it got all a bit overblown. And I just think, that's what Nigel Farage is, Charlie. That, what people will argue whether that misses that or not, Charlie. I know you think differently to me, Charlie. And
Zach, I'm going to ask you a question now. About last year's Black Lives Matter protest. Do you think the statue of the slave trader Edward Colston in Bristol should have been torn down and thrown into the harbour?
I think the problem is, Charlie, with this, you've got to factor several things. So for me is, obviously, Edward Colston was a slave trader. And people of Bristol did want him down. So if that's the case, then yes, he should have been taken down. I think if they should have taken it down, though, Charlie, in a lawful way. So they should have got the council or something like that to basically decide, we want to take this down. The council should have took much tougher, further action, okay? It probably shouldn't have been the people that done it. I know that's probably there now, or probably in exchange. But it should have been done democratically. I agree with that. Let's just say that for certain. I think, taking so long to take a slave trader down when the people don't want it, that's a problem. And they should be heard, but not by, unlawfully taking down statues. In terms of, if people would be outraged, Charlie, if it was Winston Churchill, I agree a statue should be up for him. You can compare his controversial comments and whatever. But, there'll be an outrage that if Winston Churchill would have done it, there'll be so much outrage. I think, It was wrong. It would have been wrong on Winston Churchill. It would have done wrong on Edward Colston without it being democratically done, okay? I know that like, Sadiq Khan's done a review about statues and what should be there, what shouldn't be there, and have a honest conversation about history. Not everyone agrees with him on that. I know people outside London not exactly happy about that for certain when you see all the interviews and read all the comments about it. But or if you ever read on the Daily Mail or whatever, you know, because they know they're very right-leaning. But whatever. At the end of the day, right, okay, I think if you're going to tear a statue down, at least tear it down lawfully. I agree on that one point, okay? I think if you just think, you might as well, if that's the case, if you think, oh, yeah, let's take a statue down, we might as well just destroy people's houses with hammers and everything like that. And we might as well just, you know, let's just throw our wood sticks all over the place. And yeah, let's just tear into people's houses. If we're going to take that example of statues, we might as well take it everywhere else. But let's do it all democratically. I agree. Let's all do it democratically.
I think Zach as well, yeah.
Farage said, by the way, when comparing Black Lives Matter to Taliban, that's just too far. I just think that goes too far. And, you know, I just think, you know, the fact he took so long to answer as well, whether, you know, a statue of Adolf Hitler would be okay in Germany, something like that, probably, which it isn't, and they took it down, they voted it down. Can you imagine the same if we voted on Winston Churchill, for example, Charlie? That's the thing, though, Charlie. There will be reactions whatever way you look at it. And, you know, I rather, if we need to take statues down, take statues down, but let's do it in a democratic way. Let's do it in a lawful way, like some of it was done. Some of it was done lawfully. Like some of the one that I think there's a statue taken down in London that was done lawfully, not Winston Churchill, but another slave trader. But yeah, let's do it lawfully. You know,
I think
Charlie,
I think we're going to see.
That's how I view things.
I think we're going to see a lot of criticism from someone like Donald Trump on this, on the way that statues are being
Donald
taken.
Trump. Yeah, Donald Trump is a pro statue guy. He put sentences of 10 years if you took down one statue. He put his jail sentence to 10 years for taking down a statue. That's probably less what you get of murder sometimes if you're careful with that over there, Charlie, or even a police officer get less of that if they even did something horrendous like killing someone or something like that. The rules are ridiculous and it's like double standard. I know they love their statues over there. Donald Trump loves his statues, but goodness me, Charlie, can you imagine getting 10 years? It reminds me a bit about the travel. It's like the quarantine rules where you get 10 years for potentially lying about a quarantine rules. I mean, yeah, I obviously hope deservedly so go to prison, but goodness me, 10 years. I don't know whether that's realistic or not. I don't even know even the court rulings would even do that sort of thing. So yeah. Bit ridiculous.
Yeah. Zach, final question before we wrap this podcast up.
Yeah.
What do you make of Black Lives Matter? That is the last question. What do you make of Black Lives Matter? And do you think the protests last year were allowed to happen? Did you think that caused a COVID spike potentially?
Well, I don't think there's evidence for that causing a COVID spike. That's the thing, though, Charlie. I don't think we have any clear evidence about that. I don't think it has been really, to be fair, because most of it's done outside, so in the fresh air where, you know, that will happen. In terms of the organisation, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with all of it, it seems. Obviously, equality is a good one. I do agree with like bringing equality, for example. There's no doubt about that. No one would disagree about that. I don't agree with like stuff like defunding the police. No way. That's just stupid. That if you stand on an election for defunding the police, that just kills you. You're ridiculous otherwise. When we talk about politics in this country, Charlie, where, you know, we talk about defunding the police, that's completely ridiculous compared to all the year where we've asked for investment in the police, training the police, and then to come out and say, oh yeah, defund the police. That's just ridiculous on you. So in terms of the organisation, I don't agree with that. In terms of the idea of Black Lives Matter as an idea, as a principle, yes, I agree with that, absolutely. You know, the death of George Floyd was always going to be the cause, you know, start all this outroar because it was ridiculous what we saw, Charlie. 8 minutes, 46 seconds of a man, you know, kneeling on a black man's head, a white man, police officer, kneeling on the black man's, you know, head and killing him, basically. And there's the trial this week, by the way, in America, Charlie, of that police officer who killed him. That's happening right now. But
Eric Chauvin,
you know,
that's the name of the police officer.
Eric Chauvin, yeah, that's the name. But you know, I agree with the idea. I don't agree with the organisation. You can separate those two, Charlie. Taking the knee, I you know, for me, I would take it. I wouldn't have any political motive behind it. I would take it as an idea of principle, like they do in football every week. And they still do. They still, to this day, Charlie, since this happened in May and June, they still do take the knee. And that's been really successful, really. It's been a motive. And, you know, that's the thing, Charlie. I wouldn't mind doing that. I don't think of Marxism or anything like that when I take, if you ever need to take a knee. I don't think of a political thing. I think of the idea of principle of Black Lives Matter, not, you know, not political Marxism. Because if you make the comparison, if you're not careful, Charlie, if you make the comparison between, say, Black Lives Matter as a principle and then Marxism, then you're going to the racism bit. I'm afraid, Charlie, when I say that. And I'm not saying people who say, you know, who refer to the organization comparing to Marxism and who make the organization. But I think there's too many people out there, Charlie, that, you know, for me, when I read comments of what people do about you know, Black Lives Matter, there's too many people who seem to confuse the idea of Black Lives Matter as a principle and Black Lives Matter as an organization. Those two should be separated, because then otherwise it comes out, otherwise it's a bit racist. If you just say, oh, Black Lives Matter is simply as a principle to Marxism and stuff like that, because that's just race-based a little bit. And if you're talking about the organization, fair enough. Like defund the police, end capitalism, you know, there's a debate about whether we want to end capitalism or not. That's fair enough debate. But if you're going to use the idea that say, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter is Marxist as a principle, say Black Lives Matter in principle, then you're taking it too far, I think. And compare it to say like the Taliban, that just takes it too far.
Well, Nigel Farage compared it to live on Good Morning Britain.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was too far. You know, Nigel Farage went too far by saying that. It basically cost him his LBC job, Charlie, that did, at the end of the day, for making extremist views. And people, the producers of the LBC got fed up with him. They didn't want to work with him because he made comments that went too far. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, he went a little bit too far on that, I think. But you know, that's what you're probably going to miss from him in politics time. A lot of people will enjoy what he said, and they'll be missing for that. A lot of people like me, I didn't enjoy it. I mean, you know, I think, you know, he had influence. I didn't enjoy his. I have to say, I didn't enjoy Nigel Farage's influence on politics, because it made it spiked up a lot of nasty things that wasn't even necessary. But there, he's retired. The old boy's retired. He's still going to be influential. He's still going to speak out when needed to be. That's it. A lot of people are going to miss him. A lot.
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
It certainly is. Please get involved below. I'd like to hear your questions about Black Lives Matter. Do you think Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement? Let me know down in the comments below. But that's all we got time for today on the Globetrotter Newscast. And I have to say, we've actually just run over the hour, actually, which is a shame. But of course, please stay up to date with all the latest news from around the world. And please, guys, at this moment in time here in the UK, please stay safe and keep following all the social distancing rules to help limit the spread of coronavirus. And if you're asked to get your vaccine, please go and get it. It is really safe, and it helps Britain get out of this crisis, and it helps save many thousands of lives. Thank you so much for watching the Globetrotter Newscast, everyone, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of this installment of the Globetrotter Newscast with me, Charlie Tolhurst. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Goodbye.